how do we identify them? So narcissists
Private
are usually
therapy.
people who can be quite charismatic and they tend to sort of stand out in a crowd, or they like to try and stand out in a crowd. They
Private
can be
therapy
mistaken
clinic.
for people who are quite confident because they will have the mannerisms and behaviors of someone that maybe sees themselves as quite confident. This is because they tend to see themselves as being quite special, and they really need other people to see them as being quite special. So these are not the wallflowers, these are not people who are quite introverted who want to actually drift in. These are people who actually will hold themselves in a certain way. They want to be seen, they need to be noticed, and they very much rely on validation from other people. So they're going to stand out a little bit. Now, some narcissists are a bit more covert, and they will often come across as very friendly, very likable people. And even when you're trying not to go for a narcissist because you've learned all of the kind of, arrogant tells that some of the more obvious narcissists might have, you might still end up being drawn to more covert narcissists. These are people who come across as Mr. Nice Guy or Mrs. Nice Lady, and actually they're not really that kind when you really get to know them. So without further ado, I'm going to
That's
go
why
through
I'm a
13
bitch to
signs
start off
to
with.
find out whether the
I'm
person you've
mean.
been having sex with is actually a narcissist.
It's hard to get
Number
to know
one,
me.
the way that they see sex is confusing. For the emotionally available person, sex is about intimacy. It's about letting someone in, letting them get close to them, and being able to be vulnerable with another person. For the narcissist, it's about conquering someone, it's about gaining power over that person and getting that person to idolize them and see them in a certain light. Essentially, sex is a very controlling act for the narcissist. They want this person to see them as the best lover
Once he knew I was
had,
hooked
and they really
sexually,
try to manage the person's
that was
idea
it.
of them and view of them in this situation. So narcissists tend to be quite controlling in sex. Now, this doesn't make them good or bad lovers, because narcissists are selfish in bed. They will often be a bad lover, but also you will see the narcissist who actually is Casanova in bed, that they really do perform very well, because actually this means that the other person is going to view them in a certain light. Number two,
He certainly loved the light I viewed him in.
So you are the source of the narcissistic supply.
Oh, I'm so glad I could supply you being a blow-up doll in the middle of the night.
When you're in bed with a narcissist, they will need to see adoration. They will need to see reassurance from you that they are the best lover that you've ever had. As long as you're in awe with a narcissist, you're in awe of them, you think they're fabulous, wonderful, then the narcissist is getting what they want. And in the very early stages of the connection, I shouldn't really say connection, let's just say scenario with the narcissist, that actually as long as you're mirroring them and how they want to be seen, they're going to be quite happy. However, with time that is going to get boring, so it only works in the early stages. But as long as they think that you see them as the best lover that you have ever had, then the narcissist is
God's
happy
gift
in
to
the short
women.
term. So they will be working pretty hard in the early stages to manage the view that you have of them and control this view. So their actions in the early stages of the encounter will be very much about trying to get you to mirror them in the way that they want to be seen by you. Number three, they're right and you're wrong. So this is really difficult and emotionally draining for anyone who gets into an argument with a narcissist. Now, if you're a follower type of person and you see the narcissist as kind of superior to you and you kind of agree with them all of the time, then that's going to work fairly well for the narcissist. But once you start having an opinion and you start voicing that opinion, the narcissist is going to start putting you down and implying that they're absolutely right and you are absolutely wrong. And this is really confusing because it kind of leads to gaslighting, because this can happen in conversations where maybe no one is right and no one is wrong. It's just a difference of opinions. Now, if you have an empath, anyone who's got high levels of empathy, or like relatively even a dose of empathy, they care about other people's point of view. So they don't necessarily see themselves as right or wrong. They know what they believe in and they put those ideas forward, but they're also very interested in the ideas of another person. And then you have a nice two-way conversation, and sometimes you can just debate some interesting topics and it never gets heated. With a narcissist, a lot of emotions are going to get triggered because of the way the narcissist is responding to you, which is basically giving you the message that they are absolutely right and you are 100% wrong, regardless of what the topic is. And you know, sometimes I think the hardest time is when no one is right and no one is wrong, and nothing can be proven. But the thing here is that they're going to give you the message that your point of view, your beliefs, your opinions don't actually matter when it comes to a topic where they care about. So the narcissist is going to want to be perceived as right in certain topics. There might be a few things at the start that they let go, but when it actually comes down to things that matter to them, they are going to make you absolutely feel like your opinion does not matter at all. So when we're talking about sex, perhaps you might state your sexual preference, or you might state something about your sex lives. Whatever you bring up, they're not kind people. So often narcissists can be really generous, and the reason they're quite generous is because that controls your... They believe that they know you better than you know yourself. So what you might find in conversations with narcissists is that they start telling you what you think, what you feel, what you believe, and what's actually right about things in your life. So an example of this is a client that I was working with, and she had a telephone call with someone that she'd met on a dating app. So it was like the first or second phone call. She didn't know them. And she just said something about her preferences. I think it was that she didn't want to disclose too much about a previous relationship too soon until she got to know the man a little bit more. And she just said, you know, I will tell you a little bit more about my past relationship with time, but it's still early days and it was quite a complex situation. If you don't mind, I want to just see if we're going to get to know each other first before I reveal all. And then the narcissist said to her, "You're afraid of intimacy. I can see this a mile away. I know what the problem is here. We're never going to work out because you're never going to let me in. This is probably how things go in all of your relationships." And the narcissist just started telling her what she was, how she is, what her problems are. And this was a very difficult conversation for this lady to have, because of course she didn't know that she was dealing with a narcissist. This was like her first or second phone call with this man, and she was just launched with all of this information about what he really believed she was, and he didn't know her at all. So this was very confusing for the lady. She wasn't looking to get into an argument, but she felt very kind of attacked by him, and she didn't really know what to do with this conversation. It was quite overwhelming for her. When she later stood back and was able to reflect on how that conversation went, she was able to see that there was something not quite right about this stranger sort of diagnosing her in this conversation and telling her all of these things that she was, without this man having very much information about her at all. So the narcissist will often try to tell you what you are, what you think, what you believe, things that you don't see about yourself. So they become the expert in you, and this is their way of trying to control you. So they will often be very condescending, belittling, or putting you down essentially in a very covert way by pretending to be the expert about how you think and feel and what's going to happen in your life and what you should do and what you shouldn't do. Basically acting like you don't really know yourself very well and you need their help and their guidance, and without them you are nothing. And this is actually a type of gaslighting, and of course when people are quite vulnerable and don't know themselves very well, they might latch on to a character who's sort of helpfully guiding them, because usually the narcissist is not going to be saying these words with an angry tone. They're going to come across calm and helpful and just like a confident individual who's just trying to guide them in the right way. So it's quite hard for people to actually see that what's happening in these situations is gaslighting. Of course, in some of these situations, the narcissist can have an angry tone and it can come across a lot more abusive. But
were you recently injured in a car accident? Look at this check for $160,000. If you're looking to get money you're owed for an injury, I want you to imagine you and your family getting that money, because I know a way that you can. Now, before you think I'm crazy, I want to...
The confusing thing for a lot of people is that often this communication is very covert. The abuse in these situations is very covert abuse, and that's why these situations often go on for a long time before people recognize what's really happening in the situation. Number 5, they won't want to communicate about sex. So when you hit problems in the bedroom and you want to try and discuss these and resolve them, what's going to happen is that you're hit with a roadblock. The narcissist believes that they're right and you're wrong. So therefore, anything that you come up with or anything that you want to discuss with them, they will insist that their point of view is right. So even if you start to communicate about things to do with sex, you're not going to reach any resolution really, because they're right and you're wrong. Whereas actually, effective communication in a relationship is a two-way thing. Both people have to listen to one another, consider the other person's perspective in order to reach resolution. So therefore, the narcissist kind of always has to get what they want in sex. And that's going to be a very disappointing situation for most people. There are exceptions, and that's where the narcissist actually is very good at pleasing their lover, because it helps them see themselves in the light that they want to be seen. But I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Number 6, your needs and emotions do not matter. So initially you meet the narcissist, they're a charismatic individual, they're very interesting, they've built their life up in a certain way, or they've sort of orchestrated a life in a certain way where they come across as very attractive. But actually, as you get to know them and as they've kind of completed their wooing phase and they feel they've already reeled you in, you'll start to notice more and more disappointment, upset, anger. A lot of emotions are going to be triggered in you because the narcissist does not care about your feelings whatsoever. So you want to really pay a lot of attention about feelings that are triggered in interactions with the narcissist. What does the narcissist trigger in you? How does their behavior make you feel? And take note of that. That's something really to pay attention to. Number 7, there's something wrong with you. The narcissist has to hold the status in all situations with you. They have to perceive themselves as being the better one. They're your leader, they're looking after you, they're guiding you, they're the one who's in control, and you're kind of this person who just follows them. That's how they like to see things. So in order to hold the status in these situations, they're going to start pointing out your flaws or alluding to your flaws, depending if they're how covert they are. But really, the narcissist needs to be seen as the higher person, the higher power, the person with the higher status. And this is for their ego. Their ego is quite fragile, so it needs a lot of massaging and it needs a lot of boosting. So they need to be the top dog in all situations. And that's going to be difficult, particularly in the bedroom. Number 8, you're going to get devalued, ghosted, or ignored. So this is probably one of the most painful things about having sex with a narcissist. That in the beginning, everything is wonderful, they've wooed you, they've been really charming, they've just been absolutely a dream. And then they have you, and that's where they're going to devalue you. You don't matter to them anymore. And there's a number of reasons why. So one is that they're not actually getting the same high from you. So the validation that you did give them in the beginning, they're not really getting that high from your validation anymore. They get used to it.
That's why they have to get
addictive nature and the fact that they get so addicted to the validation that others give them mean that you can only be a very good narcissistic supply in the beginning. And after that, you're going to do something wrong in their opinion and they are going to devalue you. So initially they're going to idolize you, and then bam, all of a sudden you are not this wonderful person anymore, and you will have done something that they perceive as awful. They may or may not tell you. They might just ghost you very suddenly, and it's going to be really confusing for you as to why this amazing person had treated you so well and really valued you, all of a sudden does not value you anymore. And this might be from a small incident that you did, and it can be very confusing as to why this small incident has erupted into this huge thing that has really upset them.
What do you want, Kitty Cat? Go away, Kitty Cat. You just a Kitty Cat. No, Kitty Cat. No, Kitty Cat. That's Stormy. I love Stormy more. No, Kitty Cat. I love Stormy more. I love you too, Kitty Cat. I don't want to smell your butt. LA County, fix your balls for your... Spay or neuter.